Hey there, I'm Kyrsatile, and welcome to another Speedbuild. Now, this is kind of different from what I normally do. This is still a palette challenge. However, this wasn't selected from a randomly generated palette or asking anyone for a color or anything. This is actually based off of my mother's Lovebird, Pepper, which you've probably heard several times in the background of several of my videos, because obviously he's a parrot. Parrots make quite a bit of noise. But I actually have him with me while I am recording this audio post making the speed build, so I can hopefully keep him vaguely quiet by petting him, though if his screams sound closer, that's because he's right here in the room with me. But this build is obviously inspired by the bird, who is a peach-faced lovebird, sometimes known as a rosy-faced lovebird. And this build came about because one of the bird groups I'm in, which says a lot about me as a person, really likes him. So I decided to do a build based off of the little man himself. And he is a very colorful bird, even by rosy-faced lovebird standards. He's more red than most lovebirds, but he's kind of always been like that. Now, Pepper has been in my household for like 15 years at this point. We've had him pretty much since he was able to leave the nest. And it was him and I think 3 other lovebirds, and Pepper is the one we ended up with, and he got his name because he's kind of bell pepper colored. He's got like blue and green, and he's predominantly red and yellow, so I think that's where my mother got most of the inspiration from. Now, lovebirds were kind of my first introduction in my largely memorable life to birds, especially parrots. My grandmother had some birds when I was younger, but they kind of died when I was about 3, 4-ish, not long after I moved to Calgary from Florida with my mother. So Pepper is my first really memorable experience with birds, and I'd say he's pretty alright as a creature. Yeah, aren't you? Yeah, good bird. Hi. He's actually quite friendly even by lovebird standards, though lovebirds are one of the friendlier species of parrot and is one of the most recommended for beginners. That being said, I don't recommend parrots, even lovebirds, to people who don't have a lot of time to spend with them, because they are very, very social birds. In the wild, lovebirds are usually in flocks of about 10 to 30, sometimes in the hundreds, depending on how many resources are available. And they will mate for life with one other lovebird. So if you are planning on getting a bird, which, please, for the love of God, do not get a bird without doing your research. Don't get a lovebird just because I decided to make a cool-looking build and spent 15 minutes of your time talking about birds. I would definitely recommend getting a pair if you don't have a metric shit ton of time to devote to your bird, because lovebirds are one of the more prone to loneliness species of bird out there. And in place of another bird, they will actually bond with you, and it's really easy for the poor little bird to get very confused and start thinking you're its mate, and obviously you can't reciprocate that kind of shit, so it's better to get a pair if you don't know what you're doing, because it's really easy to make a lovebird hormonal, and it's really easy to set off their... Oh, hi, yes. set off their mating instincts and all that fun stuff, and it's really frustrating for both you and the bird. But, something a lot of people don't know about parrots in general is that, handling them wrong can kind of set off their mating instincts and all of that fun stuff. Like, petting their back can lead to a very horny, hormonal bird. So, generally speaking, you want to just pet their head. That said, some birds are just really hormonal and weird anyway, which, Now, the other thing about parrots and lovebirds is if you decide to not pair them, but then you just try and pair them later in life, it's probably not going to work out that well. Now, there are a lot of cases where it does, but after the bird has kind of bonded with you and picked you as its primary flock mate, it's unlikely to get that bond with another bird, especially with lovebirds. Like, we've had a couple other lovebirds, older lovebirds, since we got Pepper, and he wasn't fond of them because obviously he's spent his entire life as a single bird, mostly people bird, because we do have a lot of time to dedicate to just the one bird and his attention. So the other birds, while he would tolerate them if they weren't in his space, etc., he's not really one you could pair with another bird because he spent years as basically an only bird, which is fine. He's a very good little bird, but that is something to keep in mind when getting parrots. I do see a lot of people, unfortunately, that just see really cute videos on the internet of things parrots can do, and they don't take into account the fact that they're like a really smart type of animal, and like all animals, they have emotional needs and they need lots of attention, but they're not like cats and dogs. Like, cats are fine getting attention when they want it and you leaving the house for hours at a time and working a full-time job, and dogs, if properly trained or don't have separation anxiety, will also be fine with that. But birds get lonely really quick because they are a very social creature. So people will see a cute video of a parrot and get a bunch of parrots and then not realize that they scream and they can be messy and they all bite, because that's just something birds do and something you have to keep in mind when getting a bird. So it ends up with parrots being, I think it's the most rehomed animal on the planet, which is really sad because they're one of the more trafficked types of animal too. But the average parrot will go through, I think, 5 homes in their lifetime, which isn't really fair to the bird. And people also don't remember things like parrots aren't domesticated. They can be tamed, but not so much domesticated. They haven't been bred over thousands of years to want to please people or be more palatable to people. Unlike cats, which domesticated themselves, and dogs, which we have domesticated to the point we have pugs now. But they can be very good companions if you have the time and patience to live with them. Because the other thing is, if you get like a suddenly more busy schedule and you have a singular parrot, they can end up sort of deacclimating to people, which you can obviously fix that, but they take longer to train and reacclimate than, say, a dog or a cat. Like Pepper here, for instance, I have been trying my hardest to get him to eat fruits and vegetables. My mother has been trying for years, and I'm trying, and it's kind of a disaster, but we've been trying to get him to eat more fruits and vegetables than he currently does, because when he was much younger, he stole a piece of tomato off my mother's plate while he was free-flying in the room, and he's kind of distrusted fruits and vegetables ever since. He did not like that, and that's not really something that birds are supposed to have in high quantities, because a lot of them don't like it, and in some cases, depending on the bird, can be bad for them. But he just took one bite of it, and he hasn't trusted those fruits and vegetables things since. But we're working on it, and hopefully he eventually starts eating his vegetables like a good bird. But that's the other thing. They're incredibly smart, but they have the misfortune of being as smart as a human 2 or 3-year-old, and anyone who's interacted with a 2 or 3-year-old knows they are stubborn as all hell. So entire species that is essentially 2 years old for 30 years sometimes. Nightmare. Trying to introduce them to new shit or things that they don't really like can be a nightmare. But he is a very good bird, and I do actually rather like birds. I'm doing a 1-year update on my dream house speed build here soon. That will be going up for the 1-year anniversary of my channel, April 28th. And it actually has an aviary in it, because I do think in the future, when I get settled somewhere nice, where I kind of want to be, I would like a bird or two, because probably 2, depending, maybe a couple pairs, because I do like them. I like watching them, and I do enjoy interacting with them, and I do really like lovebirds, but I want to give them the best possible life. And as much as I like them, I feel really bad making something as social and intelligent as a lovebird entirely dependent on me, and I obviously don't know how many people I will be living with in my future when I get settled in my ideal situation. It could just be me my entire life. I don't know, but I do want to give them a full social group, because obviously birds understand other birds. I don't understand bird language. It's so a couple birds in an aviary, just so I can kind of watch them and interact with them. But I know for a fact they won't be lonely. Like, I know Pepper's not lonely, because he gets lots of attention and lots of interaction, but he also lives in a 3-person household as an only bird. I don't want to have a singular bird in future and then suddenly get busy for several weeks and then have the poor thing be lonely. So, I don't know. It'll all depend, but I would like an aviary with some birds in it, because I do like them. When I was younger, we would watch the birds outside a lot, and we actually had a birdhouse on one of the old houses outside the house I lived in that swallows would nest in all the time, and it was absolutely fascinating to watch every year. And I have a couple bird feeders attached to my window just so I can watch the birds come eat. And yeah, I've just spent 15 minutes rambling about birds and bird care and all that shit, but yes, Kyrsatile PSA, don't get a parrot unless you know what you're doing, because they are loud. The cute videos are only a small percentage of the time, but they are absolutely worth it. And Pepper here, even though he is very noisy and he sometimes screams a lot, he is a very good boy, and I love him very much. So we are approaching the end of the build here, and I hope you've enjoyed it. There is a montage coming up. Leave other creatures I should do builds on in the comments. And as always, I will see you in the next one.